Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most merciful, the most compassionate. And I would like to say Assalamu alaikum also, the same as the peace be with you. And a good evening, those who also appreciate that. I'd like to thank Samira for her very brief but to the point and very pragmatic introduction. I thank you. And also I'd like to thank you, Imam Junadi. He's left already. It's my favorite surah, the verses that he recited. So thank you for that also. Now, I think that, to talk about the Islamic History Month of its own history would require at least about an hour to tell you exactly how it started, what was the struggle, and how it came to be. But the interesting thing is this, that it was a concept that really took root, not only in the Muslim community, but also in the mainstream. We had a lot of professors, senators, politicians, people who are just basically interested in history itself. So this is a culmination of many months of trying to find out a way, a more active, proactive way. How do we promote dialogue among the people, ordinary Canadians, ourselves, or anyone else, in terms of bringing some balance to the rhetoric that we were beginning to hear and read in the media after 9/11. And so one thing was this, that there was a whole context was missing. People really didn't know who the Muslims are, what Islam is, where they come from. We were just an unknown entity. Islam was also unknown, basically. And here then there's a new image, or through verbal media, writing, was beginning to emerge of Islam as something other, who doesn't belong here, has never belonged anywhere, and it is some ideology that certainly don't need to know. And I think that that was really the motivating forces for those who brought this proposal and presented it to the Parliament. And that was Honorable Muriel Belanger, MP for Ottawa-Vanier, an official opposition critic for Canadian heritage, Francophonie, and official languages. He introduced the motion in support of recognizing Islamic History Month Canada. And this his history-making motion was carried out in the House of Commons during that inaugural year of 2007. It was October 23rd, 2007, when that motion was passed. And ever since that year, it's 5 years this year, we have had increasing interest, increasing dialogue, increasing curiosity, and a positive and sometimes very negative our dialogue in many places, is that when you tell us that Islam had a civilization that was able to, for 800 years in Spain, which Michael will be talking much more than I will, has managed to live in a pluralistic society where there were Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and non-believers, or all of this variety, and then a flourishing civilization grew, and the knowledge, through knowledge-based. And I think that is something that I remember the time where I have been invited to be a guest and talk about some things or the other. Somebody will throw in, well, Islam has an ideology of being very anti this and anti that. And yet, that is the message, what is missing. And so I think Islamic History Month Canada has done, it's very basic yet, it is growing, but in time, I'm very sure, inshallah, God willing, that will continue to grow. So I won't take too much time, but I would like to mention a few things, is that it is a uniquely Canadian project, as we know. It isn't sponsored by anyone, and there's no money that has come from overseas to support it. It is funded and developed and delivered here by Canadians. So it is a Canadian project and a Canadian thinking, Canadian way, whichever way you like to look at it. And it's and it says multiple merits to it, which are quite few. I mean, I can list so many of them, but I will just mention one of those, which I think that speaks to what I've just been saying. that it has a potential to reduce the fear of otherness. The otherness is what causes misconceptions, and it's not that everybody's evil and they're all after to get us, but nonetheless, when you have no knowledge base on which to base the reality, we tend to look at it in a much more cautious way, or in a way that we don't understand it, so our reaction is always like that. So I would say that that is the most important thing, and it may also eliminate and deter Islamophobia, which is also creating an atmosphere of real disconnect between Canadian Muslims and in general view of it. And I think that that is because we are Canadians, so we belong here. And our belonging is part of being able to have a dialogue in which we not looked at it as others. So I would say that that would be another impact, and it is already having. And then also to develop a climate, a positive climate of acceptance, in which we can freely exchange ideas and not be looked on as someone from the outer space. And with every year, we have had different themes, and they have shown that history is not only what is set down in books. Rather, it is the living experience of who we are and what we do, individually and together in society. And moreover, in making Islamic history in Canada a living reality, Canadian Muslims are also part of the Canadian history in the making. So every day what we do, some of our young people are now shining, their pictures are in newspapers, or they are recognized somewhere, or they have signs, they are doing research, they are interviewed, and all of that. That's history. We are making history. Our younger generation is now stepping into that. We did, as an older generation who came here, we have made history. We built these institutions like beautiful center here, which is, we enjoy the fruits of that. I think that is a concept that we must also absorb, that we may feel sometime that we are under attack, but nonetheless, we are now part and parcel of this history, which is being in the making. And we are Canadians, and we are Muslims, and there's no doubt about that. And then most of you know, perhaps, that since 2007, there have been 5 themes. This is the last theme today that you'll be hearing. We have looked at the Islamic finances. We have also looked at the architecture and Islamic banking, irrigation and water system, medicine and pharmacology, and Islam and the environment. Each year's series has featured prominent international speakers who have toured many major cities, which is, last year was more. They were Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Kingston, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, and Vancouver. And this year, the Islamic History Month Canada is proud to honor, to host Michael Hamilton Morgan as it is 211 guest speaker. He will tour Toronto, Kingston, Saskatoon, and Vancouver. And really, there's so much I can say about him that there are about 2-3 pages alone to capture his in-depth research, writing, and how he feels. And I think most of all, the most impressive thing is that he actually genuinely enjoy and feel the importance of bringing the lost history, which is a book which is available. We have only 15 copies, and how it contributed to the Western civilization. And I think you will hear when he speaks, when he covers that area, and particularly in terms of governance, which is very important. So I'm just going to give you a very brief, and I'm going to read it so I don't miss anything. He's an award-winning former diplomat and author of Lost History, the enduring legacy of Muslim scientists, thinkers, and artists. Mr. Morgan is also the founder and president of New Foundation for Peace, a not-for-profit organization created to teach leadership skills to youth worldwide. The message of Morgan's 2007 book, Lost History, The Enduring Legacy of Muslim Scientists, Thinkers, and Artists, is published by National Geographic, Random House, and then it has a www, which is, you can look it up, has reached more than 300 million people worldwide and was translated into Arabic, Japanese, Korean, Indonesia, and other languages. President Hosni Mubarak presented Morgan with Egypt's Presidential Medal for Arts and Sciences in 2009. The book was praised by former President Jimmy Carter, Jordan King Abdullah II, and NYU's Pulitzer Prize-winning historian David Lewis. Since 2007, Morgan has been a keynote speaker at the Arab Business Council, British Parliament, World Economic Forum, U.S. Treasury, Georgetown University, UCLA, University of Virginia, the Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation in Dubai, the Abu Dhabi International Book Fair, the Sharjah International Book Fair, the Asian Society, and many other venues. His recent book is Arabia, In Search of the Golden Ages, released in 2010. And I think I will now move on to invite Michael, who I think is going to enlighten us tonight evening. And so please welcome Mr. Morgan, who will be discussing Islamic contribution to pluralism this evening. And I think we should
First, let me say that it's a great honor to be here in Canada, one of my favorite countries in the world. And not a more appropriate place to talk about enlightened leadership, pluralism, and diversity. It's unfortunate that you share the North American continent with two much louder, noisier countries that tend to get all the attention, good or bad. But very quietly, Canada's been building something that's quite exceptional. I know it's not perfect, nothing on this earth is, so I have a special place in my heart for what Canada is and can be. I've only given this particular talk once before, and that was at the British Parliament at Westminster in London. And I must say the audience was quite different, although there were some representatives of Muslim countries, some ambassadors, as well as British Muslims. The audience was primarily education and politics. And the audience was very attentive because here I was in the very seat of Anglo-American democracy, the place where Benjamin Disraeli and Winston Churchill and so on tried to do what they tried to bring their vision into reality. And here I was talking about something, talking about people, about concepts, about historical events that I would wager only 2 or 3 people in the audience understood and recognized what I was saying. Everyone else was utterly lost. And that is because this narrative, this story of the civilization that many of your ancestors and forebears created has been erased, whether willfully or by accident or neglect. The historical context that people use to frame their view of the world and how society should be organized is not there. And I realized, I've watched this evolve over most of my lifetime. I came to this subject initially through the language of Spanish, which is my second language. I studied Spanish. I started it when I was a little boy, and I was taught it in a Catholic context, a very conservative context. When I would ask questions about where does this word alcázar come from, because it didn't sound like Latin or look like it, people would say, well, that's Moorish. And the only story that I was given was that there was this period of foreign occupation that ended in 1492, and so that Spain could throw off its foreign shackles and rise and become a great world power. Now, I must say that my daughters, who are, one is in, believe it or not, as old as I am, in the 5th grade, another one is in college, and another is out on her own. They've been given a somewhat different narrative, a broader one, a deeper one that's more inclusive. But this is what I was taught when I was that age, that it wasn't there. It was something unpleasant, and it's gone. If we're going